Guys, hear about the Neil Gaiman accusations? The man responded. We didn't go over all of the accusations or allegations on stream, mostly because I skimmed through it a little bit and they were horrific, and it really the article describing them was quite long, and I feel like it would have been literally 90 minutes of me just making people in chat sad, but the basic gist of it is, from my understanding, is that he just, there's extensively groomed, predated upon multiple younger women. I think some of them were like lesbian, like he was doing the whole like, actually what if you try a guy bit, and he was like predating on them around his kids, so there was child sexual abuse in there too, and they were getting like fed to him by his wife. He and his wife both do this like soft boy woke liberal progressive this bit, and his wife, they were doing like a Ghislaine Maxwell Epstein bit where she was like finding women for him to predate on, and she was fully aware of the fact. Amanda Palmer, yeah. Neil Diddyman is crazy. That kind of bit, you know? Hello again, Ruben. Want to tone the segment down? Why are you so floppy? You're like a ferret. Coraline Sandman, my heart is broken, TBH. Honestly, and okay, I read Sandman a lot when I was younger. I have never read Coraline, but I enjoyed the movie. I can see a parallel between the accusations against Neil Gaiman and the kind of work that he tends to produce. Wait, he directed Coraline? No, he wrote Coraline and American Gods. I did not care so much for American Gods. Amanda Palmer tricked her suicidal boyfriend into thinking she killed herself, which caused him to try to kill himself. Later, she used a clip of it in a song. That's a Sigma moment right there. Accounts about Gaiman began to surface last summer when multiple women came forward on a podcast produced by Tortoise Media, accused the author of sexually assaulting them, but a much more detailed and disturbing series of accounts by multiple women who alleged that Gaiman pressured, abused, and assaulted them was published by New York Magazine on Monday. At some point, it's a little bit like grisly, but at some point I think it might be worthwhile to go over the whole article detailing the allegations, because I feel like it's a really good insight into how very often rape and sexual assault and predation and what have you are not, it's not that they weren't really obvious and straightforward in these allegations. We're not talking about like blurry lines here, okay? It's more like, how do I put this? There's a very specific kind of guy, I guess it's not just guys, but mostly guys, I guess, who consider themselves good people, and they're aware of the fact that to get what they want from women, they have to push on women's boundaries, but because they consider themselves good people, they go out of their way to try to extract consent first. But the extraction of that consent is done in a very manipulative fashion. Maybe you know someone who's like this, like, or maybe you've like heard of this, or like you kind of understand the tendency, but like it couldn't have been sexual assault because she said yes, but the like yes in question is the most strained, like you have power over them, like by the implication. It's like the Dennis method, you know? If she won't say no because of the implication, like it's like, I don't know. Like Channel 5. Yeah, like Channel 5 shit, yeah. Like Callahan shit. The article described alleged abuse behavior by Gaiman towards women who claimed he forced them to perform degrading acts, including licking vomit off his lap, and in some cases pressured them into sexual situations while his young son was present in the room. It's a really grisly article, guys. It's really... It's a whole deal. I think I saw a tweet about it, which maybe describes the severity of the situation pretty well, but the allegations are bad enough that this will become the thing that Neil Gaiman is remembered for. Like, in 10 years, the fact that J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter is going to be thought of largely as like, at best, like an even note, but in more likely like a sub note to the main point of her leading a global hate movement against trans people. And this will also kind of like overtake the rest of it. Like for example, like Woody Allen, for, you know, like Woody Allen's allegations, not allegations, I'm sorry, like what Woody Allen did is so infamous that in a lot of circles it's kind of like overtaken his history as a filmmaker, you know? known for this first and for his writing career second. Catherine Kendall, 35, was one of the women interviewed by Layla Shapiro for the New York Magazine story. She met Gaiman when she was 22 while volunteering at one of his book events in Asheville, North Carolina. She described how at another reading 10 months later, Gaiman, who she'd grown up reading and admiring, pulled her to the back of the tour bus and laid on top of her. According to Kendall, he said, "Kiss me like you mean it, and I'm used to getting what I want." Classic. According to the article, Gaiman later gave Kendall $60,000 to pay for therapy in an attempt, as he put it in a recorded phone call, to, quote, make up some of the damage. Anyway, he again, the whole article is damning beyond belief, but I'm kind of dancing around the topic here, the topic being the fact that he put out a response, finally, breaking the silence. He did not, it's not a video response. He doesn't have a ukulele. I'm sorry. Breaking the silence, though, you couldn't imagine a more like online YouTube title response. You know what I mean? How many days until Gaiman goes MAGA? See, that's the thing, you know? We've seen over the course, at least of me streaming, or of the past few years, or what I've paid attention to, like dozens of guys do the outed rapist to MAGA pipeline, because the MAGA movement largely celebrates and never believes victims unless they're victimized by like an immigrant or whatever. You know, you see this happen all the time. Elon Musk did it. Russell Brand did it. Like, it's really, really common. And I don't know if Neil Gaiman can do it, largely because he's known as such a like soft boy male feminist writer, I guess. Like, so much of his reputation is built on this perception that he's given space to women and minorities and so on. I don't know, if you've read anything from him, you can tell that he's really self-assuredly, like he's very proud of himself for the space he's given to the concerns of minority groups. You know what I mean? You read anything from him, you get that feeling? It's all over the place in Sandman. He's widely known for it. Remember the writer character self-insert in Sandman who is trying to pick up a fan by telling her he's a feminist? There's like multiple characters like that just in Sandman. Fake male feminist type. Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah. Hope you take back your misinformation surrounding GPU. Never. Over the past many months, I've watched the stories circulating the internet about me with horror and dismay. I've stayed quiet until now, both out of respect for the people who were sharing their stories and out of desire not to draw even more attention to a lot of misinformation. I've always tried to be a private person and felt increasingly that social media was the wrong place to talk about important personal matters. I've now reached the point where I feel I should say something. This right here, right out the bat, is a lie. Neil Gaiman is very online. Like, writers tend not to be, because writers ought to be like neurotic introverts, but he literally what's the like he had a huge Tumblr page, and that was like the crowd he was popular with too. But what's that site that people integrate to Twitter, and it's like ask me questions anonymously? You know what I'm talking about. It's like sometimes micro e-celebs like have people ask them about their, I don't know, feet or something on it, and they're like, ew, don't ask about my feet, that thing. No, it's like a question. It's like an anonymous. Curious Cat was what I was thinking of. Ask FM, maybe it's Ask FM, I don't know. But anyway, he does like that style engagement, and he did it like a lot. Like, he, over the past 10, 15 years, he has put a ton of effort into cultivating an uncharitable person might call it a parasocial relationship, and I think that's kind of warranted now given what we know about him, but like he has been very active with it, you know? As I read through this latest collection of accounts, there are moments I half recognize and moments I don't. Descriptions of things that happened sitting beside things that emphatically did not happen. I'm far from a perfect person, blah, but I've never... Man, you can even see what I mean about the like male feminist soft boy thing just from the covers of the books that are being advertised on the sidebar there. You see that? You have to know what I mean, right? There's like a very specific, and now it's not contemporary, it's not contemporaneous anymore, you know, like this is something I associate with like 2010, I guess. I know what you mean. I love it when people tell me that they know what I mean when I'm inarticulately gesturing at a vague idea I have in my head. I'm far from a perfect person, but I've never engaged in non-consensual sexual activity with anyone ever. I went back to read the messages I exchanged with the women around and following the occasions that have subsequently been reported as being abusive. These messages read now as they did when I received them, of two people enjoying entirely consensual sexual relationships and wanting to see one another again. At the time I was in those relationships, they seemed positive and happy on both sides. This is irreconcilable with the content of the allegations against him. And I also realized looking through them years later that I could have and should have done so much better. I was emotionally unavailable while being sexually available. Oh, this is a classic one right here, where you're like, okay, I didn't engage in any sexually untoward behavior. My mistake was that I wasn't like emotionally open enough, and they feel hurt by me not being caring. So when the accusation against you is that you've been sexually abusive, you can be like, well, I'm sorry for not making my emotions available to you, which sounds like it's a response, but of course it's not. It's a different thing, you know? Yeah, it's like a sorry you feel hurt kind of deal. Self-focused and not as thoughtful as I could or should have been. I was obviously careless with people's hearts and feelings, and that's something I really deeply regret. It was selfish of me. I was caught up in my own story, and I ignored other people's. It's a classic. I've spent some months now taking a long, hard look at who I have been and how I have made people feel. Like most of us, I'm learning. I'm trying to do the work needed. I know that's not an overnight process. I hope that with the help of good people, I'll continue to grow. I understand that not everyone will believe me or even care what I say, but I'll be doing the work anyway for myself. I like this one a lot. I know not everyone will care that I'm putting in the work. It sounds like me when I'm like mad at you guys for not appreciating me enough, you know? Following like bombshell accusations. Now, I know you won't appreciate it, but I am putting the work in to grow as an individual. You know, I understand not everyone will believe me or even care what I have to say, but I'll be doing the work anyway for myself, my family, and the people I love. I'll be doing my very best to deserve their trust as well as the trust of my readers. At the same time, as I reflect on my past and as I re-review everything that actually happened as opposed to what is alleged, I don't accept there was any abuse, of course. To repeat, I've never engaged in non-consensual sexual activity with anyone. Some of the horrible stories now being told simply never happened, while others have been so distorted from what actually took place that they bear no relationship to reality. I am prepared to take responsibility for any missteps I made. I'm not willing to turn my back on the truth, can't accept being described as someone I am not, and cannot and will not admit to doing things I didn't do. So yeah, it's pretty much like, I mean, it's like a non-response. It's effectively no you. It's if I committed a crime, it was not being nice enough to the women I was having sex with, but everything else I didn't do. They're like, it's fake. This is so narcissistic. I mean, I think there's a tinge of it to that, to be sure. At least the ukulele was funny. Well, that was on a much lighter subject, you know? That was we've escalated slightly. And you know, you have this, but obviously for every like one woman who comes forward, there are certainly women who don't, right? Like you have these patterns, and this was the whole point of the Me Too movement, by the way. The point of the Me Too movement wasn't always believe everything an accuser says. It was like pay attention to it, and at the very least hear it out. And if you take it seriously, there are probably going to be other people coming forward, because the main thing that people like Neil Gaiman, or I guess like, you know, Weinstein rely on is that you have like 40 separate women with their own stories, but because they never speak about them, they never hear about the other 39. So you never get like this single like chorus of accusations, which is usually the most damning thing, right? It's difficult to do much with like a single he said, she said, but if you get like corroborated, time-stamped multiple accounts, that's a lot more compelling, or a lot more convincing, I should say. It's bad enough that it's led to the halting of several productions that he's been involved with. I mean, it's quite bad, you know? American Gods wasn't even that good and gave me creepy vibes. I read it so long ago, I don't really remember it that much, to be honest with you. There's a big section now. Sexual assault and misconduct allegations. See also the Weinstein effect. You'd think that if Gaiman was concerned with like eventually denying that anything inappropriate happened, he probably wouldn't want to have an on-the-book $60,000 payment to somebody that he assaulted before. Yeah, this was the bit from the allegations or the accusations or whatever that was so bad. I mean, I'll just read the paragraph, I guess. Scarlett Pavlovich, former nanny for Gaiman and Palmer's child, alleges that Gaiman sexually assaulted her within hours of their first meeting in February 2022. Pavlovich recalled that he said, quote, Amanda told me I couldn't have you after the assault. Because remember, Amanda, his wife, was like Ghislaine Maxwell. Like, she would find women for him to abuse. So, like, in acknowledgement of that, you know? After the assault, according to one of Palmer's friends, Palmer had previously told Gaiman, you could really hurt this person and break her, keep your hands off her. Other allegations include that Gaiman referred to Pavlovich as slave, an epithet she said was repeated by his son. His kid son heard it so often he started calling this adult woman in their house slave because Gaiman was calling her it enough. And that Gaiman made her perform oral sex while his penis had urine on it, causing her to vomit, which he then made her eat. She stated that Gaiman had anal sex with her in the presence of his son. It's a whole... going over the whole thing is just like a longer version of this, basically. TMI. I'm sorry. That's the damn... Yeah, it's a nauseating article. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I made a point earlier about like I don't know, the male feminist effect, or what people make fun of when they talk about male feminists. I think this is part of the reason why feminism has become a dirty word to a lot of people. Like, even as feminist beliefs have grown more popular, even with women, the number of people calling themselves feminists has gone down. And I think that there are a number of reasons for that, mostly like a right-wing disinfo campaign, the idea that feminists are like all fun-hating, stuck-up prudes or something like that, you know. But I think a part of it is that there's been this like ascription of skeeziness to self-identifying as a feminist because so many men have done so disingenuously as a way of like evading culpability for their behavior or like deceiving people, basically. You know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of like the male feminist stereotype or archetype, right? Where it's like a disingenuous attempt to let people's guard down so then you can like predate on them more. And Neil Gaiman fits this to a T, because if you go by the allegations against him, and frankly, they're so severe and so corroborated that it's really difficult to not... Like, is 100% of the stuff said about him true? I can't know that. Is enough of it probably true enough that I feel comfortable talking as though it's true? Yeah, it's pretty... There's been a lot of synchronicity on the delivery of those accusations. I mean, 5 women, just from one, like, podcast expose. But with regards to Neil Gaiman, I mean, he leaned into that so much. My main point of reference is his Tumblr blog and Sandman, because Sandman is, if you read it uncharitably, because before I read it charitably, and there are parts of Sandman that are insufferable, but I read them charitably and thought, well, some people are just insufferable sometimes. When you read Sandman uncharitably, and I've read it enough times that I can just remember what I'm talking about here, Neil Gaiman is so proud of himself for being progressive. It's one of the main things that he's known for. And his Tumblr blog, where he's always like using it as a platform to express like the validity of the people he's talking to, or to indicate, yes, I'm progressive, you know, yes, I'm on the up and up, yes, I'm caring, so on and so forth. And again, a lot of it is just a matter of charitability, but we don't have to be charitable anymore. I guess I said this yesterday, but it just kind of reminds me a little bit of how I feel like black people, not only do they do this, I think they're right to do this, are a little bit suspicious of white guys who go on and on and on and on about how not racist they are, right? You know what I mean? Like, past a point, you have to look at that and you have to go, okay, like, that's good, but you're investing a lot of energy into projecting that impression, which makes me wonder about, you know, like, if you might be rebalancing for something. Do you think he's ideologically progressive, or does it not even matter? I don't know, because like the thing is, we've talked a lot on this stream about how like the root cause of fascism is often sexual insecurity. The problem is that like sexual insecurity or sexuality and gender expectations, these other like baseline demographic personality things, you know, they're a really fundamental part of how a lot of people think, and most people don't want to give credit to that, you know? Most people like to think that the things they believe, the things they say, the positions they have are formed through this like rational process of analysis and evaluation, that they can justify what they think or what they believe. They have reasons for it. In reality, a lot of the stuff that you believe is just kind of like a product of circumstance, and that's not innate, that's not inevitable. You can work on all of that, but for most people, most of the time, I think you're mostly like post hoc rationalizing stuff you already have feelings in the direction of. And in the case of somebody like Neil Gaiman, I think you can make a compelling argument in either direction. Maybe he's a knowing hypocrite and predator, and maybe he's genuinely deluded himself into thinking that like this insane pattern of abuse is actually uh not bad at all, because every single specific instance has like these like legitimizations or rationalizations he can apply. Both can be the case. It's not possible to know. So I guess all you can really do with it is go like, okay, is there a relationship between being like a progressive uwu soft boy and being a rapist? And the answer is no, not really, right? Like that's not actually true. Like if you went and you like took a look at how many rapists there are, I really doubt that many of them are those uwu soft boy types, right? Like most of them are probably just guys, just dudes, you know? I doubt there's a direct correlation. It's just like a specific archetype of that behavior. You know what I mean? Like it's a specific, it's a subset, it's a category of that behavior. And to a large extent, yeah, I do think you could probably draw a relationship between it and like power and wealth disparities, you know? Because this happens all the time with wealthy guys, you know? Like Weinstein types, people who are prominent in the industry. Not gonna lie, Vosh used to give off the same vibes. It was the man bun. That's why we cut the hair. Do you think the BoJack Horseman episode about male feminists was about Neil Gaiman? No, I think that stereotype or that archetype of behavior is something that's been criticized for a while. At one point in the article, he literally threatened one of the women with the fact that he is a very wealthy man. Yeah. Do you think the internet's starting to do this thing where they go, actually, this person who's revealed to be terrible is also untalented all along? Yes, and I think that's stupid. Obviously, bad people can be good artists and vice versa. I think that oftentimes when you hear bad like allegations about a person, it will then make you less charitable and you can reflect on their work in that context. But like the belief that bad people must produce bad art is dangerous, because it then gives you like a free pass to ignore bad things done by people who produce inarguably good art. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to follow that line of logic down. Yeah, like Kanye. Kanye, objectively a phenomenal artist. Maybe, I mean, he's been on the downhill for a while because his brain is actually like liquid now. But yeah, but I've seen so many people struggle with that, where they're like, you know, how can Kanye be bad when he, you know, made Graduation or whatever? And it's like, you know, but it's. It would also be essentialism. Yeah, you got to avoid that. There's probably a correlation, but yeah, there's probably some correlation. I'm just saying that, you know, you should probably just if you hear about allegations against an artist, it's probably not the best time to turn it into a story about how you're super smart because your media analysis skills allowed you to detect that they were bad and stinky beforehand because you didn't like their art or something. You know what I mean? Yeah, they know what I mean. I don't know why I'm trying to talk to YouTube chat. Like, I'm down there at the monkey pen, getting feces thrown at me. But a very sensitive subject too. That's it. Privilege is revoked. It's over. It's not coming back. Yeah, sorry if you're upset about it. Then maybe the good chatters should have outnumbered the bad chatters. But the good chatters get complacent, and the bad chatters never sleep. So you get what you get. Was there a point I was trying to get at here? I don't know. Stuff like this is pretty damaging to the confidence and the psyche of young people who idealize artists like this, you know? Like Neil Gaiman had a lot of young people who looked up to him and idealized him, and obviously they shouldn't, certainly not anymore. There was something I read a while ago that I thought about, and I've gone back and forth on it, but I always thought it was kind of at least an interesting point, right? Which is that cyberpunk as a genre, as a setting, isn't actually anti-capitalist because it doesn't posit an alternative. It resigns itself to the future of capitalism. It doesn't give you anything else to strive towards, and for that reason, it can't be meaningfully anti-capitalist. It just trains you to think maybe the decay of our economic and social systems will look cool and give us like cool augments and stuff. In that way, it's kind of like a reification of capitalist realism, the idea that there can be nothing but that system. In basically no cyberpunk stories do you have like a meaningful alternative presented. You're usually just fighting in the ruins of the system that exists. And I think that in a way as well, we're kind of getting that right now with gender, where it seems like the Me Too movement fizzled in large part because wealthy, powerful men hated it. And we're getting a like a cap off on the behavior of people that we idealize, and we're not getting much of an alternative. I guess what I mean is that the bad people are very loud and the good people mostly stay quiet. You know who's an example of a good guy, to my knowledge at least? Daniel Craig, the former Bond actor. You know, he was in Glass House, Glass Wing, Glass. What are those movies? Glass Onion. Thank you. Glass Onion. Oh, I only saw the second Glass Onion. I liked it. You know, if you look at Daniel Craig's interviews, he's like very queer positive, very nice guy, has really positive attitudes when it comes to like, he's got a lot of insight on masculinity because of course he was a Bond actor, you know, for a decade. So he's got a lot to say on that. But do you hear about his interviews? Maybe if you follow him specifically, but for the most part, it doesn't really get boosted. He's just like a nice guy in Hollywood. Meanwhile, all the worst people on earth get all the airtime imaginable. And then you have people like Neil Gaiman who were like meant to be something better to aspire to. And it turns out, no, he's actually like worse than a lot of them, you know? I think that it's really dangerous to just not be given like an optimistic route through because otherwise people resign themselves to, I think in this case, like, and I'm not trying to make this like another gender war thing or whatever, but like we have a real issue right now in our society with gendered polarization, and it's going to get a lot worse if shit like this keeps happening. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you have to believe, like on a fundamental level, you have to believe that we can all get along. And when shit like this happens, I just know there's gonna be like 100,000 young annoying girls who are gonna like be permanently disillusioned by this, and it's like every bit, like bit by bit, it contributes to, I guess, like the widening of a gulf that makes it difficult to fix things for everybody, which is really sad. You know, does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm talking about here? You keep getting bad example after bad example after bad example, and even if you take down those bad examples or critique them or acknowledge the faults or analyze it or whatever else, like it's still an example of bad. It's an example of a bad thing happening, and the more those pile up in like the collective cultural consciousness, it seems like the more willing people are going to be to just, I guess, write off the broader project. That just sucks. Well, can you blame them for getting more disillusioned? Well, no, not really. I'm not blaming those girls for getting disillusioned at all. That shit's Neil Gaiman's fault. I'm just saying that it's unfortunate from like a broader social perspective. It's, you know, it's why blame the girls for being upset? I didn't. You're imagining. You're listening to two streams, and there's another stream you're listening to with a guy that sounds like me, and he said different things, and you're mixing it up. I gotta not respond to shit I see in YouTube chat. At least not everything I see in YouTube chat contributes to a negative cultural zeitgeist. Oh, to be sure. You added the word annoying in for no reason then? Well, because they're like the ones who are following Neil Gaiman's Tumblr blog were probably like, yeah, 15-year-old AO3 girls, which is, they're like annoying, but that's like that. I'm being like chastising in a like what I would consider to be like a kind way. I mean, I get it, you know. I'm not insulting. It's fine, you know. Vosh's underlying sexism classic Lamau. That's true. I never say anything negative about young men. That's true, man. I was kidding, Vosh. Not an appropriate forum for satire. Vosh is literally annoyingly self-hating about men. What the f are you talking about? Self-hating? When the fuck? I don't do that shit. Self-hate. That gets more into the like the uwu soft boy male feminist archetype I'm talking about. I don't talk about me. Talk about broader issues. You have to detach the systemic critique from the interpersonal, okay? It's also okay to be subject to a systemic fault, but not be personally, like, really accountable for it. You know what I mean? Like, every guy, to an extent, has some toxic masculine traits, but I'm not going to go up guy to guy and be like every guy in the world and be like, hey, this is your fault. Like, you know, you just have to, you have to take things in stride. Some people are so insecure, you know? You can't say shit. This is like the fourth time now I've said I can't take YouTube chat seriously, and I keep responding to stuff I say in YouTube chat. What am I supposed to do, folks? What am I supposed to do? It's a goddamn crucible in there.